what, listeners? Sometimes I think strength doesn't come from pushing harder and harder. Sometimes it looks like when we are calm, or maybe we are pausing, we are listening, and we are relearning what it means to live in alignment with ourselves. That's exactly how strength looks like. So, on today's episode of The Mindful Journey, of course, with your host Sana, we are joined by two remarkable guests, Dr. Faith Nelson and Dr. Amoree Wilde, a mother daughter team of both certified naturopathic doctors and master herbalists. They have woven together decades of wisdom with modern science, creating a partnership that bridges generations of healing. And listeners, what I love about their story isn't not just medicine, it's about strength of mindset, the courage to trust nature, and the power of passing down knowledge. So, today we'll be exploring how strength, mindset, and coaching intersect with natural healing, and maybe even challenge some of our assumptions about what it really means to be healthy in today's modern day and age. So, Dr. Faith, Dr. Amore, welcome to the show, and I'm really, really, really excited to have both of you here with us.
Thank you. You're excited to be here.
Ah, super, super. I think it's very rare. I mean, I have interviewed uh, couplepreneurs, partners in business. It's very rare, at least personally, whatever conversations I've done till now in podcasts, I've very rarely come across mother-daughter, entrepreneurs or mother-daughter coaches. It's really, really exciting and so heartwarming to have both of you here with us. So thank you once again. I just wanted to
Oh,
say that.
thank you. Thank you.
Ah, superb, superb. Let's start with your journey. I mean, this is to both of you. Um, how did it all start? I mean, sometimes it's kind of very we assume that something bad has to happen before something good happens. Or we'll have to face something very tough so that we experience that, and then we bring we create a solution, or we find a solution, and then our life becomes better. How exactly it all started with both of you?
You know, it really started in several different times and ways, but originally I kind of got into natural medicine probably 30 years ago. I have a son and he kept getting reoccurring ear infections. And they kept putting him on antibiotics, and I kept thinking, "This cannot be good for a little baby." And, it was a neighbor of mine who actually brought over some garlic oil and told me to try putting that in his ears, and I didn't even really know how to do it at the time. And so I had to ask her, like, "How do you put it in his ear?" Because it was in a bottle. Um, but that's really kinda what took me into natural health, and I started going on nature walks and just learning as much as I could. And I think with Amory, she just kinda grew up in it and just kind of attached to it. Even when she was younger, like, she loved to help me, um make tinctures and salves and come up with her own recipes. And so it kind of really just started and grew over years. Um, she then, I always knew I always wanted to go to school and be a naturopathic doctor, but I'm a little older and they didn't have online things at that time. And my husband had just graduated from school and it wasn't really practical for me to go back east and move our family there so I could go to school. So I just continued to learn for years on my own. And then Amory went and she's also a licensed massage therapist. And after she had graduated with that and was working with that, she found that there was some schools for naturopathic doctors you can do online, and they have live lab classes you go to. And so she was the one who told me about it, and I was so excited, and so I started and she started, and so it's been kind of a slow progression over years, um, but yeah, that's kind of how in a roundabout way how we got to where we are. There's more to it because, like, we are doctors, but then we're also like, I'm licensed in microscopy. And so there's reasons why I do microscopy in my own health journey. I found that microscopy was a great way to monitor your health at a cellular level, not just through muscle testing and energy work. Um,
Mhm.
but just through things like that, and then in our practice has continued to grow and expand, and because there's so many people getting into tinctures, a lot of the tinctures and herbs we were using and from other companies started to not work very well. We watch it in the blood and we monitor it in blood, and so that's really kinda what led us into opening our own tinctures. We've been using these recipes for a long time on our own family and my family and her brothers and sisters, and she's married now and is expecting, and so we decided to start bringing in our own recipes and having our clients use them, and that's kind of like I said, we just kinda keep growing. Never really thought that's where we would be right now, but anyway, it's been exciting. It's been a good journey. It's been a good adventure.
I think that's a brilliant recap in there, Dr. Faith. That's a good recap. And Dr. Mori, if you have to say anything to it, I mean, you have like your entire childhood, and now you are, you know, doing it. You are helping others out there, people out there, to understand the delicate balance between hormones and stress. Uh, how is it like? What exactly you think about it for your journey? Yeah.
Well, like growing up in it, you just kind of knew like, okay, if they're sick with this, then we do this, and then it wasn't until I went to college that I realized it wasn't common knowledge for everyone to know that like garlic oil for ear infections and elderberry syrup is higher in vitamin C than most vitamin C supplements. And so it was kind of started there when I was in college, like, really, like, wow, a lot of people don't actually know this, and I always wanted to go into natural medicine. I always knew that that is what I wanted to do. I didn't know exactly how I was gonna get into it, but I knew that that is what I wanted to do ultimately. It was just something I've always had a passion for and I've really loved, and I've always loved making our own medicine and our own tinctures and supplements, and so when we decided to start the supplement line, that was very, very exciting. I really, really enjoyed it.
That's heartwarming, Dr. Mori. And of course, very, very inspiring. And it kind of gives me uh, so much nostalgia, because in Asian culture, especially in India, it's kind of a legacy that is specially passed down in the matriarchy, or from your grandmother, from your mother, about different home remedies. It like includes, yeah, garlic, of course, turmeric, and different herbs, in fact, spices as well. um
Yes.
I
For our culture, I think we kinda lost that because I'm also a big gardener. Um, most of the supplements or herbs we use in our tinctures, I actually buy just so we can track it and make sure it's all fine. But anyway, I do garden and I use my own herbs and things from the garden for my own use. But I have my grandma, she's now passed away, but she used to call me and my aunts call me to ask me questions about gardening. So it would be nice to, have someone to look back and ask those questions to, but I'm excited to be one they can turn to as well. So it's kind of fun.
Yes, it is. It is. Okay, now let's get to understand. First of all, let's start with strength. Um, we often equate strength with muscles and endurance. Lifting heavy weights. In your work, Dr. Faith and Dr. Morey, how do you redefine strength beyond the realms of this physical body?
Strength is an interesting topic because I do think it is important to have some strength, especially as you get older. I turned 50 this year, and I do talk to people as they get older that, you don't have to go lift heavy weights, but to keep up some resistance training, and resistance training is really good for your muscles as you get older because you don't want broken bones, you don't want to slip and break things. But I do feel like it's even more important to have strength of mind because there are so many people that we see, whether it's in our mortar building, or we also people can call us and they can have
Consultation.
consultations that way. And a lot of times it's the mind that's struggling with people. They've been through emotional or physical problems. Um, and the mind is struggling just as much as the body. And so it's really important to strengthen our mind, our inner body, our soul as it is to nourish our body.
Yeah.
One of the things that we always talk about with people is herbs are great. I love herbs. I tell you what herbs to take, but you also have to work on the mind. And so we do a lot with affirmations. We do a lot with breathing work and talking about why getting oxygen into our mind and into our body is important, and how affirmations can affect our bodies and our minds and our health overall. And so I do really feel like the mind is really important, that you have to work with that just as much as you do with the body.
I would have to agree with that. Like, so many people come in and they just have so many different symptoms. They have hormones going off, and their skin is just covered in rashes, and it's just one thing after another, after another, after another. And when you're sitting there talking to them, you just know that, like, this person has just been, a lot of times it's like, okay, so when did these symptoms start? Okay, they started 2 months ago. What was going on 2 months ago in your life? And then they just pause and they're like, well, I was going through a divorce, or I was going through this, or my child was doing this. And so then it's like helping them realize that this isn't, although the symptoms are physical,
Mhm.
so much of it started in a mental spot.
An emotional, yeah,
Mhm.
an event.
Yeah. That is so right. That is so right. And I mean, I just don't want to generalize it, but once again, especially for women, um, and that too in ages, when you are kind of, at the crossroads of different phases in your life. If we talk about um, being at the phase or stage of perimenopause or menopause, or if we talk about teenage, um, I think these are such crucial stages, where I think systematically or maybe socially there have been so many misconceptions around it. Um, I would love to ask that have you encountered what kind of misconceptions you both have encountered, especially the discussions around women's health, especially teenage or maybe perimenopause or menopause.
I think one of the biggest ones we see um, is hormone supplementation. There's so many women that they start to get symptoms of perimenopause or even just PCOS, painful periods. They start to get something that's uncomfortable, and they go into the doctors, and the first thing they do is they put them on a hormone supplement. So whether it's estrogen, progesterone,
Mhm.
and that actually causes so many issues. If you know, like, the cycle and how things break down in your body, you know that you can't supplement those hormones properly. Like, there's just not a way to do it. Your body has to make those hormones, and if it's not your body making them and they're being introduced, they're more of a toxin to your body, which is why, like, if you take thyroid supplement, for example, we have a lot of people who go on thyroid medication, and they start on it and it works really good and they feel great for a little bit, and then it stops working, and they have to up the dose, and they have to up the dose, and they have to up the dose, and then they can't up the dose anymore, so then they go to a whole different medication. And it's the same with estrogen and progesterone and all of those hormone supplementations that they do, is that they start with just this little bit of estrogen or this little bit of progesterone, and then they just have to up it, and they have to up it, and they have to up it because it's not working in your body. Your body isn't accepting it as it needs to, and it actually all of those excess hormones start to actually cause more damage.
Well, and that's the thing. I think lack of education
Yeah.
is really probably the biggest problem that I see. Um, I had a friend and her mom had breast cancer. And I was talking with her and she was telling me some different things she was taking. And one of the things she was taking was progesterone. Um, and I said, well, does she know that progesterone helps things to grow, whether it's a baby or a tumor? And so here she is spending thousands upon thousands of dollars to fight cancer, but yet she's also helping it to grow. And I think so many people don't, they lack knowledge, and it's really one of the reasons why we actually decided to start, we teach classes and we do videos and stuff like that, but it's one of those one of the reasons why we chose to was because I felt so bad for this lady, and she's not alone. Like, when you sit and talk with people, it's the lack of knowledge they have. They hear this little bit here, and so they go and try that, and then they'll try this, but they don't realize how the body works, and so they're using all these things, and a lot of the things they're using is actually making them sicker, and it's feeding the things that are going on in their body instead of helping them to get better. And so, that would be my other big thing.
Yeah. I think both of you have really touched very, very crucial aspects there. And I especially want to highlight on the point of, um, education, awareness, especially with women's health. Um, I mean, there are still so many levels at which this education and right education has to be, right awareness has to be spread. Um, Not only, I think, with respect to, um, you know, the aging aspects or maybe in your midlife or after 40s, but also for teenage, young women as well, especially when it comes to hormones. And I think with the current situation, it kind of becoming it's kind of accelerating or maybe aggravating this, because right now we are bombarded with information, we are bombarded with quick fixes out there, but I think we are yet to have that approach to understand what is right for us, not what is something working for someone else may not or may work for us. So I think that's a very, very important factor to count in here. And with this, I want to bring in, and this is to both of you, Dr. Faith and Dr. More. Do men and women experience the impact of stress and hormones differently? If yes, then how does that show up in daily life or health concerns? And it's a big question, but yeah.
They definitely experience it differently. Um, I tell people who knew men and women are different, you know? I think there's so many people out there who talk and teach that they're the same. One thing that works for one is gonna work for the other, and it's just not true. Um, women should eat within the hour of waking up, otherwise their cortisol levels spike and they end up in fight or flight. Men are different. Men can go on longer. Um, you know, a stress comes back to a lot of this comes back to stress. If either one of us are stressed, it's going to cause different functions go off in our body. Like, if we're stressed, women, we're going to have higher estrogen levels than progesterone. Estrogen is sticky and it sticks to the insulin receptors of our cells, causing our cells not to be able to absorb insulin. It also has a negative effect on your thyroid, and it's actually going to cause your thyroid to decrease, and it's going to really struggle there. Men, if they get really stressed through a whole different process, they end up actually, their testosterone turns into estrogen. And so then they become estrogen dominant. They get like what looks like the bellies, beer belly or whatever you want to call it. And they have a lot of the same as far as um estrogen sticking to their cells, they can have the same thing at that time. So I know sometimes I have men come in and they're like, I have a bunch of estrogen in me and I don't even know how I'm not a woman. But a lot of it comes back to stress. So, and it affects our bodies in not really great ways. I know I once heard a doctor say that if we as a people could ever learn to manage stress, doctors would be out of business because mostly what they do is manage symptoms from stress. So, but it does affect us, I guess a little bit in some of the same ways, but a lot of times in different ways as well. So,
Yeah, I agree. It's
Mhm.
hard because you can't treat men and women the same. Like women's dominant hormones are estrogen and progesterone, whereas men's are testosterone. And so how their body works and breaks these hormones down is completely different. And yet, the biggest culprit of causing these hormones to go down, whether for men or for women, is stress. And so a lot of people try to treat them like it's the same thing. Um, but just from a cellular level, and even the chemistry in their bodies, because it's so different, they have to be treated very, very separately.
Hmm. I think this really highlights that stress doesn't just create symptoms. It definitely reshapes major chapters of our lives. Once again, it comes to our mindset, and of course, there's such an intricate connection between mind, body, and our soul as well. Especially if we talk about women who are navigating big hormonal transitions in there. Um, and let's talk about solutions here, Dr. Faith and Dr. Amore. Now, um, now I also sometimes find myself into that cycle, kind of stuck in that cycle. I'm stressed. That really affects my sleep, and then it's kind of a vicious loop. I have less sleep. It increases my hormones, and I kind of feel very kind of a brain fog in there. It affects my hormonal levels as well. So it's kind of an endless loop in there, which is sometimes it really makes me so much more stressed. So how do you help someone break that cycle?
So there is a cycle for sure. Like I told you, um, estrogen, when it goes up, when you get stressed, your estrogen goes up. The thing that people don't realize is like estrogen and progesterone, you kind of want it to be like on, if you think a balancing scale, think of like 100%. You want them to be kind of balanced. You want them to be both at 50-50. But if one is at 80, the other one's going to be at 20. And anyway, and so then, like I said, it does cause your thyroid, has negative effects on your thyroid and all these things. But really, the best thing to do is to when someone comes in and their hormones are off or they're really stressed, we actually work to balance estrogen and progesterone because you never want to increase, you always want to balance and work with the body naturally. And so we work to balance the estrogen and progesterone. We work to balance the thyroid and the adrenals because they're the same thing. You want them to be balanced. You don't want them to be like 80 and 20. You want them to be 50-50. We recommend a liver cleanse because all of these go through your liver except for your fight or flight hormones. They get dumped right down into your kidneys because they sit right on your adrenals sit right on top of the kidneys. And so on our website we actually sell a hormone bundle, a cleanse, and it kind of helps to go through and cleanse out and balance. It helps to cleanse the liver and the kidneys and to balance all the body back out. And
Mm.
actually, we really highly recommend people do it twice a year. We used to kind of talk about taking out toxins and just avoiding them altogether, but the world we live in today, you really can't take out all the toxins. They're everywhere. Everywhere you go, and we're just bombarded by them constantly. And so it's actually recommended that you do a cleanse, a whole body cleanse twice a year. And that's really what we do recommend and is what we see the most success with. And then we do add in, like I said, when we're balancing, men have their own testosterone that we help them to balance. And women's, of course, is different. We have some for young girls and we have some for older girls. And so, anyway,
Yeah. Dr. Amore.
The important part is the cleansing aspect of it because you can't just, when everything is out of balance and your estrogen is high and your progesterone is low and your thyroid is out of balance, there's not really a supplement that there's plenty of supplements you can make that will balance everything out, but you still have all of this excess estrogen in your body that's clogging up your cells, and you still have all of this excess cortisol. And so the main thing is you have to clean all of that out and take out some of that stress on your cells in order to rebuild it and have more lasting effects. Which is why a lot of times even natural supplements, they'll work for a little bit, but then they're not consistent, and it's because there was so much damage that you didn't address before. And so that's what ours does, is it kind of cleans everything out and kind of gives you that fresh start and balances at the same time.
Sure, sure. Yeah. I think really makes sense. And I think the good part here is that how we can break it down into tangible, doable steps, simple steps. I think it really, really, it also kind of feel empowering. And before we wrap up, again, to both of you, um, of course, we are talking about stress, but towards more of how it can harm or it can affect us, not only physically but emotionally as well, biologically. But others also believe that stress can be motivating, that maybe a little pressure on our body, it sharpens performance and builds resilience. Some do intermittent fasting, then there's cold bath, ice bath, and stuff like that. So, can stress sometimes be good for our health?
Yes, sometimes stress can be good for our health.
It is what gets us up out of bed in the
It
morning.
is. A little bit of cortisol is good. It's not bad. It's what gets us out of bed. It's actually anti-inflammatory in small amounts. It only becomes a problem when we're living in fight or flight, you know? Even, if you're out hiking and you start getting chased by a bear, that little bit of stress is good. It's gonna get you running. It's gonna, protect you. But you don't want to live as if you're being chased by a bear all the time.
That is when then you start to have digestion issues, you stop sleeping, um, your skin starts to break out, you can't gain weight or you can't lose weight, you start to see a lot of other symptoms come from it when it's long term.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's a very important nuance that we should kind of be cognizant about, because if we reframe stress, maybe it's not about eliminating or removing it completely, but at least learning which forms of stress uh, need to be, harnessed, and which to release. So, of course, Dr. Faith and Dr. More, if listeners, they would like to get started, and they would also like to connect with you and get access to all the wonderful resources that you're providing, what will be the easiest way?
Um, well, we have our website, Fiducia Apothecary, and on that, if they wanted to schedule an appointment, we do phone consultations, and that's also our product line, so they can order anything through there. And we are on social media. We're on Facebook, just Fiducia Apothecary, and Instagram, everything like that.
Wonderful, wonderful. And listeners, what I'll do for you is I'll make sure that all these details are in there. So do go check out their website, Fiducia Apothecary. Do check out the Instagram as well. And just refer to the show notes along with this episode on your favorite podcast platform. And Dr. Faith and Dr. Mori, thank you so much for bringing in your insights, sharing your own journeys with all of us, and also helping us, at least be reminded that healing doesn't start with a perfect routine or aesthetic routine. It starts with awareness, like awareness of understanding when stress has become more than just pressure, and also having that agency to choose even one small practice to support our body in returning to balance. So, thank you. Thank you both of you.
Thank
You for having us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And to all the listeners, I really, really thank you for devoting your precious time to listen into this episode on the Mindful Journey podcast. And I'll just, conclude with a quick question. Um, Instead of asking, how do I get rid of stress? Just ask, how can I relate to stress differently? Because this shift alone could be the beginning of a real, lasting change. Until next time, this is your host, Sana, signing off. Thank you.